Uganda that we've been covering regularly across the last few weeks on Outside Source. It concerns the violent treatment of some opposition figures, and this man, Bobi Wine, has been central to the story. He's a former pop star. He's now a member of parliament. 2 weeks ago, he was detained, and the next time we saw him, this was how he looked. He arrived in court on Monday on crutches. His lawyer said he'd been brutalized. Well, he was then granted bail and went to hospital. Today, he went from hospital to the airport to try and travel to America, but that has not happened. In the last couple of hours, well, we first of all had tweets coming through saying Bobi Wine violently abducted from the airport by security operatives. And just as that was coming through, I was about to record an interview with Robert Amsterdam, who's a lawyer who's representing Bobi Wine, and he had just the same thing to say.
Bobi Wine was rearrested at the airport, even though the judge had let him have his passport because he needed to leave the country for medical reasons after this horrific torture that he and 33 other opposition members sustained a week ago. He was violently thrown into a police ambulance. The lawyers have no idea where he's being taken, and we're all really in shock at this occurrence.
And he was rearrested in connection to the original charges he's facing?
We have no idea. The lawyers have no idea at this point.
And why did he want to leave Uganda? Was it purely for the need to get medical treatment, or does he also just want to get out of the situation?
No. In fact, his children were going to stay in Uganda. It was a brief trip simply for a medical evaluation. He's in tremendous pain. He sustained very serious injuries during this torture with a metal bar and other implements of torture, and he needed help.
Are you able to tell us what injuries he's still dealing with?
Look, there are a lot of privacy issues involved given how they engaged in this torture, but let's just say there's not a part of his body that isn't in pain, and he has very serious complications with his kidney.
And you and other supporters of Bobi Wine are calling on the Commonwealth, the UN, other international bodies to get involved here. But what precisely would you like, say, the Commonwealth to do about what is an internal matter of one of its members?
Well, it's very important to understand now that human rights is not an internal matter anymore. And I think that's something that we need to get straight. Human rights and the kind of torture that went on is a violation of basic norms of international conduct, and it's the responsibility of all nations that are members of the Convention Against Torture. So it's all of our responsibility, and what we want is we want Magnitsky sanctions. We want to identify the torturers, identify the people who gave them those orders, and we want to seize their assets outside of Uganda, and we want to stop them from being able to travel.
Well, that's looking difficult given at the moment you don't even know where your man is.
Well, let me tell you, that where he is has nothing to do with the Magnitsky Act, fortunately. And the more they behave in this kind of barbaric manner, the easier it will be for us to access those sanctions.
Well, Bobi Wine was originally arrested in the north of Uganda. He was campaigning with other opposition MPs, but also in the area campaigning was the president, President Museveni. He's been in power since 1986, one of Africa's longest-serving rulers, and he's showing no signs of wanting to go anywhere. The government claims that Bobi Wine was one of those who threw rocks at the president's car, which ended up in the rear window being smashed. Bobi Wine's now facing charges of treason. So are 32 other opposition figures, including MPs, and they too have horrific stories of mistreatment. Well, Catherine Bihanga is the BBC's correspondent in Kampala. She's been following the story all evening as it's been developing.
What we understood from Bobi Wine's lawyers is that he would be trying to leave Uganda this evening to go to the United States, Boston specifically, to get more medical treatment after allegations that he was badly beaten up whilst in military custody. His lawyers tell us that when he was at the airport at around 9 o'clock, a group of policemen came. They say he was meant to get permission from the authorities before flying out. They then beat up people around him and then shoved him into a police ambulance, and that he was then driven towards the capital. The latest information we're getting is that he's been taken to a government hospital together with another MP who was beaten up in Arua after the president's convoy was attacked.
This is becoming a big story internationally, Catherine. Is it causing outrage in Uganda?
I think, first of all, what Ugandans feel is a sense of shock. A lot of them feel a lot of pain because of the information we're getting about the way that not only Bobi Wine, but the other MPs and some of his co-accused have been treated. There are women who could barely walk when they were in court, a gentleman who fainted and had to be helped to be carried. So stories like these, images like this are leaving Ugandans in shock. But there's also a feeling of anger, especially amongst young Ugandans who feel that they're not getting the opportunity to be able to express themselves and to be able to express their political views. And Bobi Wine is becoming a symbol for that. But the authorities say that this is nothing new. And they say that Bobi Wine is basically inciting violence and also intimidating voters. So they say he's